Joseph Edwin Davies was a standout athlete in the 1950s. He matriculated to play football at the University of North Carolina. He became an Air Force jet fighter pilot after graduation. 1968 found him as a captain and an F-4 pilot assigned to the 497th Tactical Fighter Squadron based out of Ubon Air Base in Thailand. On the date of his loss, 19 May 1968, his mission was night armed reconnaissance over North Vietnam. His wingman saw explosions after the target was attacked, but Captain Davies' aircraft never returned from the mission. While in MIA status, the Air Force promoted him to Major. His case is active pursuit. He left a Gold Star widow and 4 sons. He's remembered at the Vietnam Memorial, Panel 63 East, Line 8.
Hi, my name is Katie Madsen. I wore a bracelet for Lieutenant James W. Herrick when I was in college at Brigham Young University. He was in a plane crash in 1969 and declared MIA. His remains have never been found, but I was able to send the bracelet to his niece in 2019. I bought a duplicate bracelet for display at the Palm Springs Air Museum.
Hi, my name is Judy Mosher Sylvester. Both of my brothers served in the Vietnam War, Ted for 8 years in the Marine Corps and Brad for 8 years in the Air Force. Thankfully, both returned safely home, but many did not. So in 1971, I ordered a POW MIA bracelet, received it with Lieutenant Commander Norman Eidsmoe's name on it. I wore that bracelet faithfully for many years, always wondering and praying. 3 years ago, I donated his bracelet to the Palm Springs Air Museum Bracelet Collection in Palm Springs, California. It was there that I learned that now Commander Norman Eidsmoe was a pilot whose plane was shot down over North Vietnam on January 26, 1968. His remains were recovered in 1999, and he lies at rest at Arlington National Cemetery.
My name is Jackie Carlson. I got my POW bracelet in the early 70s in Wisconsin. I wore it for many years after the war ended until it finally broke in half. I put it in my jewelry box and it traveled from Wisconsin to Arizona to California. A few years ago, I saw an article in our local newspaper that the Palm Springs Air Museum was starting an exhibit featuring POW bracelets and were looking for donations. I knew in that moment that my bracelet had found a home. This project means a lot to me because my father served in the Army. One of my uncles was MIA in Korea. Another uncle was on one of the ships that was bombed in Pearl Harbor. My brother served in the Navy. My prisoner of war's name was William Pearson III. Biff was his nickname. He went missing on April 13, 1969. I know that Biff had a son by the name of Todd who'd be in his 50s now. I want Todd to see this one day and know that his father was never forgotten. His story and his bracelet are now in the Palm Springs Air Museum.
It was back in the early 70s, 70 or 71. There was a couple of people that came into our yacht club and were showing us the bracelets and telling us about them, and I thought it was a wonderful idea. I'm former Navy as well, and I do support our troops. So my bracelet was Lieutenant Commander David Cooley, and he flew the F-111B in Vietnam. That's the plane he was in when it went down. I wore his bracelet for about 13 years after that. Joined the museum in 2015, and I met Dr. Thompson, and he told me about his program, and I donated my bracelet. And my wife had 2 bracelets. We donated them all to the museum, and they're sitting here in one of these 2 cases.
Sergeant First Class Douglas Blodgett was the son of a career U.S. Army NCO. After high school, Doug joined the Army and was a helicopter crewman assigned to the 228th Assault Helicopter Support Battalion of the 1st Cavalry Division in Vietnam, a CH-47 Chinook unit. On the date of his loss, 19 April 1968, 2 other Chinooks were also shot down while providing logistic support to the 1st Cavalry Division soldiers in the Ah Shaw Valley. A total of 10 1st Cavalry Division soldiers from the 3 Chinooks are still MIA. His 90-year-old mother still attends annual meetings of the National League of POW MIA Families to learn details of his ongoing search. DPAA lists his case as active pursuit. He's remembered at the Vietnam Memorial at panel 50E, line 44.
Hi, my name is Deborah Morris, and I wear the bracelet of my uncle, Master Sergeant James Henry Calfee of Bowling, Texas. He was in the Air Force, and he was stationed at Lima Site 85 in Laos. The site was overrun, and 11 men have never been heard from again. James is one of those. In 2012, we found papers that we filed with awards and decks in the Air Force, and we had James's medal elevated to a Silver Star. James was to be retired after this mission. He was going to retire and do what he loved best, fishing. Just recently, his hometown newspaper ran an article about him again, and Lima Site 85. I will continue to wear his bracelet until we know the complete truth of this matter, until all are home.
I'm wearing a bracelet today for John Bush. John and I were in pilot training together in the 1964 to 65. After pilot training, he went to F4s, and I went to KC-135, air refueling tankers. And in 1966, I was flying combat air refueling missions in Vietnam, and John was in Da Nang flying combat missions in the F4. 1 month before he was shot down in June of 1966, I happened to be in Da Nang and looked him up. We had kind of kept in touch. So looked him up, and we had dinner together, and we talked about the war and how it was going, and he got shot down a month later. My original bracelet is on display here at the museum.
Morgan Jefferson Donahue was the son of a career U.S. Air Force officer. He earned an appointment to the Air Force Academy and was graduated in 1967. He became a navigator. On the date of his loss, 13 December 1968, he was the first lieutenant and performed that duty in a C-123 aircraft, marking targets for a B-57 Canberra bomber in a mission over Laos. The two aircraft collided and crashed. A total of 5 other air crewmen are still MIA in this incident, to include his Air Force Academy 1967 classmate, John Scotty Albright. While MIA, he was promoted to Major. His father, Colonel Vincent Donahue, spent the majority of his retirement trying to learn of his son's fate, as did Morgan Jefferson's younger brother. He's remembered at the Vietnam Memorial, panel 36 West, line 14.
It's Marissa Abrams.
And my name is Stephen Cowan, in the Army in 1963 to 69. I'm a Vietnam veteran.
So my father's service inspired me to, on my 8th grade field trip, to go on a little renegade escapade and purchase a POW bracelet. And I wound up purchasing the bracelet of Lieutenant Daniel Bora from Olney, Illinois, who was shot down over Vietnam in September of 1972. And I wore his bracelet for a little over a decade until his remains were repatriated in '96. And we donated all of that material to the Palm Springs Air Museum, including all of the memorabilia that I'd collected for decades around POW MIAs. So I'm very grateful to display Lieutenant Bora's bracelet in the Palm Springs Air Museum, and I wore that bracelet every day to remind us of the ultimate sacrifice that he made.
Shot down May 19th, abandoned May 21st, and missing May 22nd, 1967, North Vietnam. This is my brother, Navy A-6 Intruder Bombardier Navigator, Lieutenant James Kelly Patterson, shot down over North Vietnam on May 19, 1967. He ejected into very remote, jungled, mountainous area, undefended except by frightened local farmer militia. Kelly evaded capture for 3 days. Though his pickup by helicopter should have been a milk run, on May 21st, General Momeyer of the 7th Air Force, for vague and unsupportable reasons, refused to initiate a rescue. Kelly then went missing 1 day later, May 22nd. The communist officials of Vietnam offered woefully doubtful witness accounts of Kelly's fate, claiming he was shot and buried on the spot. But when U.S. teams dug up that very spot, no remains were found. As yet, uncorroborated but believable evidence states that Kelly was taken to the Soviet Union. Kelly's pilot, Lieutenant Commander Eugene "Red" McDaniel, was captured and endured 6 horrific years as a POW, earning the Navy Cross. Red, to this day, and for good reason, sincerely believes his friend and bombardier navigator was taken to the Soviet Union. God bless and sustain Kelly Patterson and return him, alive or dead, to U.S. soil. My name is Luck Patterson. I'm Kelly's brother and only surviving family member. Please pray with me to Almighty God for Kelly's return.
Lieutenant Leland Stanford McCants III was the son of a career U.S. Air Force officer. Following graduation from Alexandria's Francis C. Hammond High School, he joined the U.S. Army and earned his commission as a field artillery officer at the Field Artillery OCS course at Fort Sill, Oklahoma. 1968 found Lieutenant McCants assigned to Battery B, 3rd Battalion, 34th Field Artillery Regiment in the 9th Infantry Division in Vietnam and attached as the Artillery Forward Observer to A Company, 3rd Battalion, 60th Infantry Regiment. He died during a river crossing, saving the life of a fellow soldier, for which Lieutenant McCants posthumously received the Soldier's Medal. An extensive search by his brother's soldiers did not locate his body. He's remembered at the Vietnam Memorial at Panel 35 West, Line 9.
I wore the bracelet for Major Joseph Chestnut, who was shot down in October of 1970. I wore the bracelet all through the war and past the war and continued to try to find out what happened to him. Eventually, I did find out that he didn't make it home. I was very happy to donate my bracelet to the Palm Springs Air Museum bracelet display in his honor.
Lieutenant Victor Patrick Buckley was reported missing on December 16, 1969, right before Christmas. He was returning from a mission and was only 7 miles from his aircraft carrier when he disappeared. He has never been found. He was my fiance. I didn't have an MIA POW bracelet when they first came out, but 2 people who sent me theirs after reading some of my postings. I, in turn, gave them to Pat's 2 sisters who now wear them, and I know that they will eventually pass them down to Pat's nieces and nephews. I continue to hope that Pat will be accounted for one day in the near future. I still miss him. The world lost something special the day that he disappeared.
Versace was the son of a soldier. He grew up in the Delray section of Alexandria. He graduated from West Point in 1959, completed Armor Officer, Ranger, and Airborne schools. In May of 1962, he volunteered to serve as an advisor in South Vietnam and served for 18 months. 2 weeks before his scheduled departure, with a plan to enter the seminary to become a Catholic missionary priest, the Viet Cong captured him on 29 October 1963 during a firefight. As the senior American in a jungle POW camp, he fought for better treatment for his fellow POWs and was a hardcore resistor for 23 months against communist indoctrination before the Viet Cong murdered him on 26 September 1965. On 6 July 2002, his family and friends dedicated the Captain Rocky Versace Plaza, and 2 days later, the President awarded him the Medal of Honor posthumously. He is the U.S. Army's only Medal of Honor recipient from the Vietnam War, whose remains have not been returned by the communists.
In the late 60s and early 70s, I lived in Fayetteville, North Carolina, home of Fort Bragg. And when I was there, I was a manager of a small branch bank. One of my work colleagues was a dear friend of Mrs. Raymond Schrump. And Major Schrump was captured and held as a prisoner of war for 5 years. When I met Mrs. Schrump, I just anguished for her. She didn't know when or if her husband would come home, and she's the one that told me about the bracelet program. So I sent for several, shared them with friends in Oregon, and I wore that bracelet on my left wrist. And I remember touching that bracelet all the time and praying for Raymond Schrump's safe return. And the day that he did get off that airplane, I remember jumping up and down for joy and crying and being so relieved. I read an article in the Desert Sun asking for bracelet donations, and I couldn't call Dr. Dave fast enough. So I've been very proud to be part of this program.
My POW MIA bracelet to honest Louis Holgren and remember his sacrifice and the sacrifice of thousands of others like him. My sister and I bought our bracelets and wore them proudly. At the end of the Vietnam conflict, we checked the listing for soldiers returned to the United States, but I couldn't find Louis. I had no idea if he was one of the fortunate who returned. A friend of mine involved with the Wall That Heals found that Louis had been killed in action the same month he was listed missing. I went to a Wall That Heals event, and Nikki was able to find Louis's name on the wall. It was so powerful to see his name etched in stone, the name I had first put on my wrist over 50 years ago. I will never forget Louis and the young soldiers that went to fight in the Vietnam conflict and never returned, and those that did return and were forever changed. Thank you for your service. You will not be forgotten.
Seaman apprentice John Anthony Winkler was the son of a U.S. Coast Guard officer assigned to the Coast Guard station on Telegraph Road here in Alexandria. Tony joined the U.S. Navy and was a member of the crew of the USS Von Hammer Richard, an aircraft carrier assigned on station off the coast of Vietnam in the South China Sea. He was assigned a mess detail aboard ship. He was last seen in the berthing compartment for his fellow soldiers. He was reported missing at morning muster on 22 November 1965. His shipmates conducted a thorough search, but he was not found. Seaman Apprentice Winkler is remembered not only at the Courts of the Missing at the Honolulu Memorial, but on Panel 3 East, Line 109 of the Vietnam Memorial, and here at the Captain Rocky Versace Plaza and Vietnam Veterans Memorial.
Fred Bell, the Managing Director of the Palm Springs Air Museum here in Palm Springs, California, has been wearing Tony Shine's bracelet for several years. Captain Shine was lost in Vietnam flying the A-7.
Yeah, Tony went out, strapped the airplane on, went out, and then just didn't come back. And nobody really has ever really figured out what happened to him. His airplane crashed, he was found, but it was just the dedication and the tenacity of our service people that struck me with his story, that he went out and did this. He was eventually found, which is the other piece, which is we never leave anybody behind. And the American military is very aggressive about making sure that we try to not leave troops on the battlefield and get closure for the families. So whenever I'm not, when I'm feeling overwhelmed or I'm not feeling motivated, I look at this because he inspires me to continue to go on and to continue to work towards our goal.
Hi, my name is Donna Graves. I'm from the Palos Hills, Illinois area. In 1967, my brother-in-law, Thomas Gaskin, was drafted in the U.S. Army to serve in Vietnam. I was 12 the day we took him to the airport, not fully realizing it would be 2 years before we saw him. He came home safe, but forever changed. In 1992, I had the honor of volunteering at a moving Vietnam Wall, where I purchased my first bracelet to honor Lieutenant Colonel Taryn Hicks, who disappeared in 1968. Very similar to the one I have in my hand here. I have since worn 5 bracelets, 2 which I've returned to family. The other 3 I donated to the Palm Springs Air Museum bracelet display. I was contacted by Dr. Dave Thompson. It took me a bit, but I sent them. I hope you take the time to go and see his museum and all the hard work he's done to honor these soldiers.
In June 1970, when Lieutenant John Ryder was shot down, I was an 18-year-old college freshman in St. Louis. Although I was against the war, I was never against the warriors. I ordered my bracelet about 2 years after Lieutenant Ryder went missing, and when I received it in the mail, I wondered if I would ever know the fate of this young man. He was older than I was, but still so young. One thing I knew about him then, and I know now, is that Lieutenant John Ryder was neither a sucker nor a loser. After the war was over, my husband and I visited the Palm Springs Air Museum, and I decided that was a good place for my bracelet to live forever. Lieutenant Ryder's remains were never found. Rest in peace, sir.
I'm the brother of Colonel Robert W. Barnett. He flew the F-105 out of Thailand, and on his 43rd mission, he was hit by a SAM missile. He is north of Hanoi, and so he ended up with 5.5 years of prison as a result. Around 1970, the bracelets began. Well, also, in Bob's case, we didn't know for over 2 years if he was dead or alive. I purchased my bracelet through Bob's wife, Anita. So I wore the bracelet for 5.5 years. I donated the bracelet to the Air Museum. My mother's oldest brother in World War I was listed as missing in action. And her mother then always thought he was going to come home. So our mother was going through that same stress that she may never see Bob again. I know while he was in prison, I was driving to work one day and I saw a billboard that said, "Let my brother go." And I broke into tears.
Hello, my name is Susan Quaid Gabriel, and I live in Central New Jersey. In my final year of high school, my graduating year, 1983, our class was having a fundraiser selling POW and MIA bracelets for Vietnam soldiers that were either missing in action or prisoners of war. I purchased a bracelet for a airman that lived in Wildwood, New Jersey. He was 26 years old when he went missing in North Vietnam. His name is Major Dyke A. Spillman. I wore my bracelet from 1983 until 2019 when I donated it to the Wall of Faces every Memorial Day and every Veterans Day. And I personally reflected and was happy to share his story with anyone who asked what my bracelet was and what it meant to me. So I am proud to have donated it to the Wall of Faces, and I feel that it's very important in a war that happened so long ago that we remember all of our fallen and lost.
Hi, my name is Terry Kravitz, and when I was about 15 years old, I was so moved by the Vietnam War and what was going on, and I wanted to do something to represent my feelings towards the servicemen and what they were doing and how they were fighting for us. And I heard about the bracelets and I said, I must get one. And the person I had a bracelet for was Willie Stark. And I wore that bracelet every day. I prayed for him, I thought of him, I wondered how he was. In later years, I found out that he was MIA and he had died on the battlefield. But my thoughts about him remained, and for so many of the servicemen that fought for us and unfortunately didn't come back. My bracelet was sent to the Palm Springs Air Museum display, and it was an honor to wear it, and I was honored to carry the memory of Willie Stark with me for such a long time.
Hi, my name is Julie Gleim, and when I was 14 years old, I purchased a copper MIA POW bracelet through my junior high school in California. The man's name on my bracelet was Captain Richard Elzinga. It was my privilege to be able to communicate with his mom a couple of times as we exchanged letters. It was very special to me back then, and it still touches my heart today. Wearing my bracelet gave me a very strong feeling of being patriotic and somehow at 14 years old, participating in what was going on in the world. Donating my bracelet to the Palm Springs Air Museum was a little difficult, as parting with it was not easy for me, but I felt like I was able to participate in something a little bit bigger by donating it, and it is my honor and my privilege to have it there on display with so many hundreds of others whose lives each bracelet has touched. Thank you so much. God bless.
I got my bracelet probably in the 70s sometime. I had friends that were wearing them. Saw a lot of people with them on. And I noticed that there was something in the newspaper one day, and they had an address that you could send away for. So I did, got my bracelet. It was just very special because it was a way to remember to honor the MIAs and the POWs. It wasn't until some time later that I had learned that he had died in the aircraft that you see behind me and on a mission.
I'm wearing this longer than I realized. Man's name is David Marshall Winters. Winters is also my last name. He's not a relative, but I found him on the wall and did some studying about him and found out he went MIA. They have declared him dead, assuming they had enough information, but looks like he and some other troops got captured and probably were killed shortly thereafter. I wear it to honor him, and I always will.
I'm Dr. Dave Thompson in the Vietnam hangar of the Palm Springs Air Museum here in Palm Springs, California, with our POW MIA bracelet display in the background. We received our first bracelet about 5.5 years ago and now have some 1,800 bracelets that have been donated to the museum. This is a permanent, ongoing display, and we would be honored to include the bracelet of any person who would like to have their bracelet seen for many years to come.
First Lieutenant Lawrence Eugene Lilly was the son of a career U.S. Air Force officer. He enlisted the Army in Alexandria following graduation from college. He completed OCS, helicopter pilot training, and specialized as an AH-1G Cobra pilot. He arrived in Vietnam in November 1970 and was assigned to the elite A Troop, 1st Squadron, 9th Cavalry Regiment in the 1st Cavalry Division. During a mission over Cambodia on 17 March 1971, he provided support to friendly forces when the Viet Cong shot down his helicopter. Last he was seen was headed to the helicopter when the Viet Cong shot him. He's remembered on the Vietnam Memorial, Panel 4 West, Line 55.
As Chambers, he was shot down on the F-4 north of the DMZ. We were close friends. We were kind of like brothers from another mother, roommates at San Jose State. Both went through Air Force ROTC together. And pilot training, he was a couple of classes ahead of me, but both at Williams Air Force Base. We were both in country at the same time. I was stationed at Vung Tau and he was at Cam Ranh Bay. A week before he got shot down, I had spent an overnight in Cam Ranh Bay with him we did a little damage at the Officers Club, but so I wore this bracelet till he was repatriated in 1973. Well, I still have one bracelet, but another bracelet is on the POW bracelet wall here that's been constructed at the museum.
My bracelet represents my first cousin, Wade L. Roth, who went missing February 12, 1968. Wade and his 4-man crew of Dust Off 50 were on a mission to rescue a wounded soldier. They crashed and their helicopter was not discovered for years. Wade was the crew chief on this medevac chopper and lived in Greenville, Michigan and Chagrin Falls, Ohio.
What do you do when your older brother, your idol, is shot out of the sky in war? You keep his memory alive. Over 300 Freedom Trees, 3 college scholarships, a plaque on the Kansas State House grounds, and a memorial in the hallways of 24th Squadron at the United States Air Force Academy. And how does his little brother keep his memory alive? He wears his bracelet every second of the last 50 years.
Hello, my name is Mike Bracelet. In the early part of 1966, I was a first lieutenant in the United States Air Force, flying daily strike missions into North Vietnam in F-105Ds. Unfortunately, on the 7th of August 1966, I was shot down and captured, and I remained a prisoner of war for almost 7 years. I was released in March 1973. One of the first things I noticed when I returned home was that many of my countrymen were wearing POW bracelets. Over the next few months to several years, I received first dozens and then overall several hundred POW bracelets with my name on them. I wanted all the bracelet wearers to know how much I appreciate their thoughts and prayers over those long, difficult years. And you should know also that, in addition to my wedding ring, POW bracelet is the only jewelry I ever wear. Thank you again. God bless you, and good night.
This is the bracelet from my father, Colonel Mark Stevens, United States Air Force. He was listed missing in action in April of 1967, and his remains came back in 1988. My family and I still wear his bracelets to remember him so that we can tell his story whenever anybody asks. It is important to remember all POWs and MIAs so that they will not be forgotten. These bracelets have been around for decades, and we could not give ours up even though his remains came back. Remember during the ceremony at his burial, there were a bunch of these bracelets that were sitting on top of the casket. And we were wondering if we should keep ours or not, and we decided that we would keep ours because we wanted to remember him and we want others to know his story. The ones that were left on the casket were buried with him. Over the years, we've been receiving offers from people to return a bracelet back to us, but we strongly urge them to keep the bracelet and to wear it and to tell people about it, tell them about why they got it, what it meant to them, and who was on that. And if it's my father, then it's deeply appreciated. Thanks.
I wore the bracelet of Staff Sergeant David Demon, and he was a crew member on one of these aircraft. Long ago, and close to 50 years I think we're coming up to, I purchased the bracelet and wore it during the Vietnam years in his honor, and unfortunately he did not return. During Vietnam, I did volunteer with the USO in Hollywood and Los Angeles, and it was at that point that the bracelets did come out, and I purchased them and took them to the USO, and many of us, the volunteers, wore those bracelets for many, many years. Some people were able to return those to the POWs when they returned. Unfortunately, David's did not, so mine is here at the Palm Springs Air Museum.
Hi, I'm Carol Bates Brown. In 1970, another college student and I decided we wanted to wear some type of bracelet to remember the suffering and the mistreatment of American prisoners of war in Southeast Asia. We thought maybe a few other college kids would want to wear them too. Well, little did we ever believe, or would have believed, that within 3 years, nearly 5 million people were wearing those bracelets. They played a major role in the international campaign to draw public attention to the mistreatment of American prisoners in Southeast Asia.
During the 8+ years that American prisoners were held in North Vietnam, we were forced to watch hours and hours of what can only be described as propaganda movies. Movies showing Americans in violent demonstrations against the war in Vietnam. Movies showing our Americans burning the flag of our country in protest to what they had determined as an immoral war. During this same time, American servicemen and women returning from Southeast Asia were met with hostility and contempt. For what? For having answered the nation's call to arms. With this background, I think you can imagine the shock and blessing it was to find out from the new shoot-downs in 1972 that there had been a significant mobilization in support of the prisoners of war in America. There was at the time what I guess you could label as a cartoon. And that cartoon showed a new shoot-down, introducing himself to an old Hanoi veteran. And in that cartoon, the new shoot-down exclaimed, "I can't believe it! I've worn your bracelet, your POW MIA bracelet." Well, perhaps that exact scenario never played out. But the new shoot-downs did reaffirm our faith that a significant number of Americans were honoring the flag and not burning it, and supporting the men and women in uniform and not condemning them. Upon my return home, I received over 300 bracelets from former bracelet wearers, from folks that had been willing to say, yes, I support them. It was my honor and my duty to write each and every one of them a personal letter and say, thank you for believing in us. It was likewise my honor and duty to place the bracelet of Air Force Captain Paul D. Raymond, United States Air Force, 9 September 1967, North Vietnam. Paul hasn't come home, and I will wear this bracelet until he does, or I die. May God bless your initiatives and support of the POW MIA movement. May God bless you and God bless America.
Hi, this is Pam White. I wore Glenn Ammon's bracelet in the early 70s. I think I got it when I was in college in Tampa, Florida, at an anti-war rally, actually, I think. Anyway, I wore it for several years and corresponded with his brother, Robert. Here's one of the letters that I still have from Robert, dated February 6, 1973. And in it, he is angry that the government isn't doing more to bring these people home, especially those that are missing. And he also says the letters we have received from Ammon bracelet letters now represent around 300 different truly wonderful people. More than 5 million bracelets have been sold. This represents vital voices in America and truly dedicated people. We can together wake up America about these forgotten men. We can't rest until everybody's home.
My name is Cindy Gavlin, and I live in Southern California. In 1970, my best friend's brother had come home from Vietnam, and he shared stories about how he had lost some of his buddies. I learned about the POW bracelet at that time, and I knew I had to have one. So I got my bracelet in 1970, and it was for Colonel Lawrence Garino. I wore it every day until 1973, when I read in the newspaper that he was released and was able to come home. In 2018, I had gone to the Palm Springs Air Museum, and I got very emotional when I saw their POW, MIA, KIA bracelet display. I went home and I said, that's it, I need to donate my bracelet. And I did. I also learned that Colonel Lawrence Garino had written a book about his captivity, and I immediately bought it. It was such a heart-wrenching story, and I am honored to be able to have worn the bracelet of Colonel Lawrence Garino. Thank you.
My POWMIA story is obviously about my dad, Colonel Oscar Moderer, who was shot down over Laos on 2/15/66. My mother, unbeknownst to me, had many POWMIA bracelets made and given to friends of mine in junior high and high school. I just learned about this a few years ago and can't tell you how wonderful it is to hear from those who care about my dad and want to know what happened to him, and with me demand the fullest possible accounting. I would like to thank DPAA for continuing to do what they can to bring him home. And I also want to thank those who continue to wear his bracelet and honor him by demanding the fullest possible accounting.
Hi, my name is Vicki Arell. I got my first MIA POW bracelet when I was 12 years old. My dad and I went down to the wall in Washington, D.C. And as he was a submarine veteran, he actually didn't know anybody who was MIA or POW at the time in the early 80s. But we did select Richard Mancini's bracelet, and his remains were repatriated and brought home to the United States, and he's buried in Arlington. I was able to give that bracelet to his older brother, and his son and I are still in very close contact. And he swears that Dad brought us together because I'm the sister his parents weren't able to give him. I now wear 4 other bracelets, and I pray for these guys, and I hope every day that they come home, that their families and their friends get some closure. And one of the ones that I'm closest to, and I really hope comes home, is Sergeant Rosso, and he's from Buffalo, New York, which is my hometown, and this was gifted to me by the guys that served with him.
I'm Joanne Shirley, the Georgia State Coordinator for the National League of POW/MIA Families and former Chairman of the League's Board of Directors. This is a picture of my brother, Major Bobby Marvin Jones, MD, United States Air Force Flight Surgeon. Bobby has been missing in action since November the 28th, 1972. He was flying backseater in an F-4D flying from his base in Udon, Thailand into Da Nang. Shortly after we lost Bobby, we joined the League of Families and we got our POW/MIA bracelets with Bobby's name on them. I have worn this bracelet every day since then, and it reminds me of Bobby every day, and I pray for him many times a day. I have shared his bracelet with many family members and friends and greatly appreciate their support and have been very blessed by that. I pray daily that the Defense POW/MIA Accounting Agency can recover Bobby's remains and return them to us so that we may honor him for his service and his sacrifice. And I pray that those of you who do not wear a bracelet and do not have one will get one so that you can support accountability for our missing in action.
I wore the MIA bracelet of Colonel Norman Eaton. His plane disappeared over Laos in 1969. It was somewhat personal for me because I was a flight attendant for a charter airline called Flying Tigers, and for 7 years I flew troops to and from Vietnam. It's possible that Colonel Eaton could have been on one of my flights. I gave my bracelet to the Palm Springs Air Museum for their display.
My name is Cindy Stonebreaker, and I am the daughter of Lieutenant Colonel Kenneth Stonebreaker. On October 28, 1968, my father left Udon Airfield in Thailand for a solo night reconnaissance mission over North Vietnam, and he never returned. This October will be 52 years my father's been missing in action. Today, I wear the bracelets of Lieutenant Colonel Kenneth Stonebreaker and Colonel William Stroden. I wear these today and every day, never forgotten.
My name is Karen Bridget Stedman, and I am honoring my father, Captain James E. Stedman, an F-4 Night Owl pilot who is MIA with his navigator, Bob Butel, as of November 26, 1971, on Thanksgiving Day when I was 4.5. The bracelet that I currently wear was gifted to me by a woman named Kim Carpenter Burton, and she grew up with Stedmans and was attracted to the name Stedman, and she wore my dad and Bob's bracelets for years, but they had a tendency to break, the old stainless steel. So she had this bracelet made from jewelry that her mom passed on to her after her mom passed away. And she wanted this bracelet to come to Jim Stedman's family, and last year Kim sent this bracelet to me. Unfortunately, she passed away as well. So thank you, Kim, and everyone else who does what they can to honor and remember the over 1,500 men who are still MIA and POW. It's time to repatriate these guys and bring them home. Their families need closure. Thank you very much for honoring us.